So AWS is a huge thing, and we cannot cover everything in 1 hour. In fact, we cannot even cover one single thing. But what I thought to do is I'll just give you some intuition about what AWS is from a developer standpoint, and I will get into a few of the demos. And then what I'll do is I'll send I'll share few links for workshop, which you can do it at your spare time or whenever you get time, and make use of that in your hackathon, not only in this hackathon but also in future work in your college, in your final year project, or whatever you feel like. Okay, and feel free to connect with me over LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm not that active in Twitter, but feel free to ping me. I'll be more than happy to help you wherever I can. Okay, so with that, let's get started. So what I'm going to do is I'll quickly switch over from this boring slides to the console, and I will try to show you things in action. So this slide is just to just to give you a base of few of the things which are needed before we get into build something on AWS. Okay, so I'm assuming that you are not you are not exposed to cloud technology, which is very hard to believe because these days people are very smart and they are doing all of this at a very prior time in their career. So I'm very sure that you are aware of cloud computing, but in a nutshell, what is cloud computing? It is basically a rented place, right? You don't buy your servers and networking gears and all of that. All you do is you just rent it, right? So you just go to any cloud platform and say that, hey, I want to use this for my work, and I'll pay you on demand, right? So that's how it is. And if your project did not work well, you can just run away from there, right? So that's as easy as as it sounds, right? So it's not like you have to spend thousands of dollars in hardware, and if, let's say, for some or other reason your project that you are working on did not work out well as per your thought or plan, then you have to you have to just stick around with that hardware, right? You cannot do anything. It's a completely loss in terms of capital. So pay as you go model works very well because these days application, whatever you build or whatever people are building, are scaling in no time, right? Just imagine that when you watch a cricket match in Hotstar, let's say in the first couple of overs, you will see that there may be thousands of users, watching that match on Hotstar. But let's say suddenly, in the last 15 overs or last 5 overs, where the game becomes pretty intense, and let's say we have a situation like, we need 30 runs in 12 balls. At that time, you will see automatically the number of users would reach millions, right? So how you can build an application in the back end which can scale like that, and the moment the match gets over, the number of users is just, let's say, 100 or 200, right? So how you can build an application which can scale out and as well as scale in like that. So to do that, you need to use AWS or cloud computing in general. And the example that I gave, Hotstar, they are also built on AWS. Okay, so AWS has lots of services, and it's pretty overwhelming in the first place. But always remember that not all the services that are meant for you. Okay, so it's just like you go to a hotel and you are you order something. You want to order something. You ask for the menu card, but in the menu you see lots of items, right? And half of the items I personally do not understand. But that doesn't mean that I will run away from that restaurant, right? So I will just order the thing that I like, right? And if I don't understand, I will ask someone to suggest, and then I just eat and then go away. But I will never crib about the fact that the menu card had 500 different dishes, right? So think about that. Think about AWS exactly in the same fashion. Not all the services are meant for you. You should just pick the thing which you need, and over the period of time, you would realize that how other services you could have used or you can use to build your application in a much smarter way. Okay, and the way that Amazon works, and not only in AWS but in general in retail as well, is we work backwards. That means that we learn from our customers, and whatever they say, we think about it, and we see that if there is a wider use case for that particular problem. If it is, then we start building that a product or service or software or solution, whatever it is, right? So it's not like we guys get inside a room and start building something in our own world, right? So we just it's very much customer focused. So the way that the AWS is architected, or the infrastructure is laid out, is at various regions. Okay, this is very dry theory, but this is very important to understand anything on AWS. Okay, because other things you can always learn as you go, and I'll give you some pointers as well. But this is very important. So the way that when we say that you can go global in no time, when you talk to someone from AWS, they will always say like this: you start your business, let's say in Rourkela today, or in Bangalore today, and let's say tomorrow you want to expand your business to not have our data centers everywhere, but we do have at major cities. Okay, so and every year we keep on adding new regions. So the term that we use is called regions. So whenever you hear about regions, you should think about data centers, right? And within a region, we have something called availability zone. So this is, let's say this is a region. Like in India, we have a region in Mumbai, and there is one more region coming up probably in next year or after that in Hyderabad. Okay, so as of today, it's only in Mumbai. So when we think about a region, within the region, there are a couple of availability zones, and that is nothing but the actual physical data centers. Because it might so happen that if you put all the resources, all the hardware in one building, let's say in Mumbai, we kept everything in one place, and there is a certain outage in that data center, maybe blackout, electricity, flood, whatever it is, right? So in that case, you may lose data. So that's why we have availability zone, where what that means is we have different physical location where we have data centers, and all your data that you have in that region are getting replicated across all those data centers. Okay, so just keep this in mind, that you have something called regions, and we have something called availability zones. Okay, and then there's something called CloudFront. I don't want to cover that, but the idea of CloudFront is simply this. Let me try to see if I can use my pen. So let's say this is India, and you have hosted some application here, right? So let's say this is Mumbai, right? Right, this is Mumbai, and let's say someone is trying to access it from Kerala, or maybe even Singapore. He or she should be able to access that because it's very near, right? But suppose you have someone in the US or in the Africa region, so let's say here, or even Australia, right? So in that case, you need to go to Mumbai and read the data. Similarly, you have to come to Mumbai and read the data, right? So this is it has a lot of latency, right? It's just a law of physics, right? Because you need to fetch the data from Mumbai, right? So for this reason, what we have done is we have created some caching location. Okay, so we have some cache. For caching, we have something called CloudFront. Okay, so that is nothing but you can think of it as in Linux, right? We have something L1 cache, then you have L2 cache, then you have RAM, right? And then you have the storage, right? So when any application which is running in your CPU try to access a memory, it will try to first try to use L1, L2, and then if it is not there, then RAM, and if it is not there, it will go to the storage, backend storage, right? Similarly, here you can think of all these, CloudFront distribution, or CloudFront network is actually the RAM. Okay, where it pulls the data from the actual regions, okay, at a regular interval of time, and so that if anyone wants to access a data which is there in Mumbai, right, it doesn't have to go to Mumbai. It will first check in its nearest CloudFront distribution. If it is there, it will be served from there itself. If not, then it will go to Mumbai and cache it back here. And there is some time to live settings which you can set, and which you can configure, so that you don't get a stale data, right? You don't get a stale data. But the idea is this: you have not only you have regions and availability zone, you also have something called CloudFront, which is for caching. Okay, so that's the whole idea about CloudFront. Okay, so I'll now switch over to some demo, and we have not discussed about S3 and CloudFront. We have just touched upon it, but I'll just discuss about S3, what it is. So basically, S3 is the simple storage service, which is very much needed for any developer, because this is the place where you will be storing your data, and we call it as object storage. Okay, so what that means is there are two types of storage system that you might have heard of, right? One is the block storage, right, and another is the file storage. If you are from computer science, you might have heard of these two terms, right? So block storage is nothing but you can think of it as a hard drive. And when you buy a hard drive, or when you connect a hard drive to your laptop or a desktop, first thing that you do is you create a file system, right? And then only you can dump any data in that. Because unless until you put a file system, you don't you do not tell operating system, because operating system has no idea how to write data in that particular storage, right? So file system helps you to do that, right? So this is called block storage. This is one type of storage where you have to create the file system and then you write the data. And then there is another type of storage which is called file-based storage, which is nothing but a file share like NFS, CIFS, or there are many other protocols, right? Depending on the platform, Linux or Windows or whatever, right? So where you don't do the file system. So here you don't do the file system. You don't create the file system. It's already created by someone, right? That is what the file-based storage is, right? And all you do is you just mount it and then start using it. So this is the difference between block storage and file storage. Now, when it comes to object-based storage, it's completely different. So you may relate this to file storage a little bit, but object storage is completely different. So in object store, what you do in AWS, what you create is you create something called bucket. Okay, and you can think of this as a container. And once you create the bucket, all you do is you put your objects. Okay, so objects may be let's say file1.text or some abc.mp3, whatever it is. Okay, so you can just dump your data. So it may sound like a file-based storage because you are not creating a file system, but it is not a file-based storage, because the moment you put the data in this bucket, every object, you will get an endpoint. You will get an endpoint, and which you can access over the URL, throughout the across the world, right? You give provided that you have given the access. So what do I mean? So let's now go to the demo and show you that. Okay, so let me go open the console. So I guess I have opened the console, but I'll open it for you. So this is the console, and once you log into AWS, you will get into this homepage. I hope it is visible. So this is my login ID, and these are the regions. Okay, so at present, I'm in Northern Virginia, that is US East 1. I'm in this region, and within this region, there are availability zone, as we have learned, right? So now you can search for S3 and click on S3. And here you can create a bucket. And as we have a lot of buckets here, but you can simply go click here and give some bucket name. And bucket names are unique across the globe. So you cannot just give a bucket name like demo. If I just do this and come down and click create bucket, it will say bucket name already exists. So if you randomize something by giving some random numbers, and then we can try our luck. And if it's there, if that name is unique, then it will create. Okay, now it was so unique that I forgot what name I have given. Okay, it looks like this one, right? So now that you have the bucket, you can upload any data here. And you can just dump any file. So let's say if I come here, I can just drag and drop and just put it here. There is some file. Don't worry about that file, just randomly picked up. But the thing that I wanted to show you is the moment you upload this file, right? If I just go to this bucket and click on this file and come to the property, you will see that it got an endpoint. Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out where is that endpoint. I can show you. 1 second. Yeah, I'm in this file, and here is the endpoint. Okay, so this is an HTTP link, and you can always access that. right? So now you cannot access because I have not given the permission in this bucket. It's not publicly accessible, but yeah, we can always access this. Okay, so in the first demo, which I want to show you is you can build a web application, static page web application using S3. Okay, so the way that you can do it is you come to S3 and you can create one bucket. I guess I have one bucket name where I have kept that. Let me just first get that bucket name. Yeah, this is the bucket name. I'll tell you what this window is, but just for the simplicity, let me just first come here and show you that. Okay, so there is one bucket, my S3 demo, 2021, and there is an index.html. So you can think about this as your HTML file, right? So this is, we are considering this as a static file or a static web page, and we are trying to build a static web page at this point. Okay, so you can always create a dynamic page, but for that S3 is not the right place. But for this, let's say you want to build a static web page, how fast and quickly you can build that. So one way to do this is you come to the property, okay, and you come down, and there is an option called static web page hosting. If you come to edit and enable it, and you give what should be the index file, because in that bucket there might be an index file, there might be an error file. So we don't have any error file, so we can say index.html. And error also, let's say we don't have error file, so let's say the same file, which people will not do, but just for the sake of it. And it is optional. You can also omit that, doesn't matter. And then you can save these changes. I'm not going to do that because that is not a right practice. And the reason it is not a right practice is because the moment I save this, it will give you an URL which will have your bucket name. That means you are telling the whole world that where is your bucket, right? And what is the name of your bucket. All the people cannot do anything, but that is not a good security practice, right? So, and also this bucket we have created in Northern Virginia region. And now if someone wants to access it from Mumbai, let's say from my laptop or your laptop, then you will get some latency, although it won't be that significant, but you will get some latency. So for that reason, we can use CloudFront, and CloudFront can help us to not only do the caching, but also it will mask that bucket name. Okay, yeah. So you will see that once you use CloudFront, it will give you an endpoint, a website, or HTTP endpoint, which will not have this bucket name. Okay, so let's try that out. But for that, we need to remember that in which S3 bucket we have this HTML file. So I'm just copying it in my clipboard, and now we are going to CloudFront. Okay, it says that it is the content delivery network, right? So you can think of it as a caching a network that we have in AWS. So there are lots of things in CloudFront, but I just want to quickly show you how you can set that up. Okay, so there is something called CloudFront distribution, which is nothing but the configuration part of CloudFront. So what we are going to do now is we are going to tell CloudFront, hey, this is my bucket, and I have an HTML file. Can you just cache this file across your network and give me an endpoint or give me a URL? That's all what we are going to do, and we are going to tell CloudFront. Okay, and how we can tell that is by creating a distribution. And when we do this, CloudFront need to access your S3 bucket, right? Because that is what CloudFront will do. So for that, CloudFront will be using one user whose name is origin access identity. Okay, we are going to see that, but I just want to give you some heads up. So let's try to create that distribution and click on get started. And here it will automatically show all the S3 buckets. Okay, so let's paste that S3 bucket, and it has already detected that. And here, what we want to do is we want to tell CloudFront that, hey, this is the bucket you should go, and you have to make sure that no one else can access that bucket except you. And you are the kind of a head of the family. No one else can access that. So that's why we are clicking on yes here, so that bucket access get restricted. And this is the user. So if we are telling CloudFront that you make sure that bucket should not be accessed by anyone, then CloudFront might ask, right? Okay, I can do so, but you should give me access, right? And this is where you give the access using an origin access identity. It's a fancy name, but you can think of it as a user for CloudFront. Okay, it's kind of a proxy. So you can always create a user, or you can use an existing user. I have an existing user, so let's go ahead with that. And that's all. Okay, and we can update this bucket policy. Don't worry about that bucket policy, but in a nutshell, in AWS everything is secured using policies and roles. So policy is nothing but a JSON document, and that contains all the information about the resource, which resource can be accessed by whom, and which resource cannot be accessed by who. So it's just for security purpose. Okay, and the other thing that we can do is we can just redirect HTTP to HTTPS. And one last thing that we need to do, there are a lot of settings because it's for caching. So there is a lot of restrictions that you can put in, like time to live, what type of data will be cached, what type of data will be excluded, and things like that. And the only thing that we need to update is what should be the file. Okay, so we have that index.html, right? So we'll just give that name, because it might happen that in this bucket, there are multiple files, right? So CloudFront will see that, okay, which file should I pick up, right? In that case, so here we are just telling that it should be index.html. That's all, and we can click on create distribution. So once you click and come to the home page, you will see that it is in progress. Okay, it will take some time, but we'll not wait for that to complete. But I already have deployed one just a couple of hours back. If I just click on this, you will see that you will get a is the origin, right? The same bucket which we have used. So let's copy this in our clipboard and try to see that whether we can see that endpoint or not. So now this is the exact same HTML file, but now you see that it is not exposing our HTML, the bucket name, and this is quite fast, right? Maybe the first time if you use, it might take a little bit of time because it's a cache miss, right? So it will take it from Northern Virginia, but after that, it will be very fast, right? So just like any caching works. So this is something that I want to show you on S3 and how you can use CloudFront for making your application, distributed across the globe. Okay, so that was one part of a small quick demo with CloudFront and S3. Now let me close this, and it will take some time. If you see now, it is still in progress. If I click here, you will see that although the endpoint is there, but it is still in progress. So what do you mean by in progress? Since CloudFront have lots of caching places across the globe, it is trying to send this configuration to all the caching regions across the globe. Okay, so now if you just open the same URL, it may work, it may not work. So it's working. That means it might have been deployed in few of the caching location, but not in all the CloudFront distribution. Okay, so let's close this. And let's go back to the slide, and we will see some other demo. Okay, so let me go back. I'm not looking at the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll get over there, once we are done with the session. Okay, so so this slide is. I just put this slide so that if you are colorblind like me, you can identify, you can test yourself, how strong you have, as far as the color understanding is concerned. Because we have lots of resources, right, and lots of services, and it's very difficult for anyone to digest everything. And I'm very sure that this slide makes no sense to you. In fact, this slide doesn't make sense to me as well. But the idea is, just to show you that the power of AWS, we have more than 170 services, and in each services we have lots of features and all of that. So if you are into your interest area, and you can pick these services. Okay, so now this is very much developer focus, and which you will be using it day in, day out going forward if you plan to work on AWS. Management console and web web console. These are the the fundamental that you can access AWS based resources, right? And if you ask me why the name Amazon Web Services, because most of the services, I mean, not most, all the services you can access through internet, right? And that's why we, in the company name itself, we have Amazon Web Services, right? So the idea is you can access all the resources through internet. Now, as a developer, you might want to see how it works in the UI, but most of the time you will be using either CLI or some SDK, right? So you'll be, depending on which language you prefer, you can use Python, .NET, Golang, whatever it is. So we are going to show some demo with Python SDK, but you have all the languages support, and as day progresses, you will have more language support, just like any other software product, right? And also there is an IDE, and this is what you have seen for a moment, and we are going to see that how you can do all your development work in the cloud, right? You don't have to have your laptop and set up everything in your local laptop or local desktop. You can have an IDE kind of environment on the cloud, and we are going to see that how you can do so and what service is that. And then we have infrastructure as code. So this is typically if you are interested in DevOps or those kind of roles where you are passionate about networking and then security and managing infrastructure, containers, Kubernetes, and all of that. Then you may like to use a few of our services where you can automate all the whole deployment lifecycle, right? So we have various services for CDCI as well, which you can use for infrastructure as a code, right? Like CloudFormation and CDK. There are a lot of services. But these are the high level. These are the 5 ways that you can access any resource in AWS. So this is just a buffer slide. If in case you don't know, AWS, you can get 1 month free access. So you can not all the services, but most of the services to get started. You can explore, learn those services for first 12 months. In fact, few of the services we have are free for lifetime. So there are a few services which are free for lifetime for a certain limit. Okay, so you can have a look into that. Also, I would like to share that since you are in college, most of you are in college, and if you have a college email ID, you can get a account created in something called AWS Educate. Okay, so you can search in the internet AWS Educate, and then you can use your college URL, and you can get a $100 credit, I guess, and you can start exploring, learning, and you can even get a certificate from AWS. Okay, but for that, the only condition is you should have a college domain email ID, not Yahoo or Gmail or any other email address. Okay, so this is just for students. All right, so now this is the most important thing apart from storage, because S3 I thought to share with about S3 because that is going to be the central piece for any developer whosoever is planning to work in AWS, right? Because everything starts with data. That's why we thought to cover S3. But the next important thing is the virtual machine, or what are the compute options that we have in AWS. So we have many options. Out of that, what we are going to focus today is EC2 instances and Lambda. So EC2 instances are nothing but a virtual machine in the cloud. Okay, it's you can think of it a Linux machine, Windows machine, even Mac, which we released recently last year. So you can think of how you can create a virtual machine in the cloud, and that is nothing but is EC2. And if you are aware of serverless, and this is what the service that we have, we call it AWS Lambda. So what is Lambda? So in case, let's say, this is an example I often give to everyone, whosoever is trying to learn a Lambda for the first time or serverless for the first time, is this. Let's say oftentimes, your application are used by your customers only once or twice in a day. Or let's say, okay, let me frame it in a right way. Let's say your application gets executed only based on some trigger from your customer. Okay, so an example would be, let's say PDF to Word conversion, or let's say MP3 to MP4, whatever it is. So we often search in Google to convert how we can convert online a Word document to PDF, or the other way around, PDF to Word. And what we get is we get some URL and we blindly just upload the document and we get the PDF file or Word document file, right? Now imagine the person who developed that application. That application gets triggered only when the user uploads a document, right? Now imagine that if you have created a virtual machine and deployed your application there, and that machine was just sitting idly, no one is going to no one is accessing your website. That means what? You are paying for electricity, you are paying for your infrastructure that you have deployed for your application, but no one is using, right? And also, let's say a lot of people started to use for some reason, right? And in that case, what you have to do, you have to buy another server and you have to scale your application, because one server cannot cannot take all the workload. So there are a lot of problem to scale out and scale in, right? Now these kind of application where your application code it should be triggered, should execute only when any trigger comes, you should use Lambda function. Okay, so what Lambda is, basically you just write your code and you keep it in the cloud. So you just write your code and put it in as a Lambda function in AWS, and nothing happens. Okay, and in Lambda, you just mention then that when this code should be executed. So you can write a Python code or .NET code or whatever it is. You have to tell the runtime, and then you have to tell AWS that, hey, this is my code, and this should get triggered when someone, let's say, uploads an image in this S3 bucket. Only then it should trigger. It should not get triggered if someone else, uploads an object in some other bucket. Okay, so you can define that condition, and then Lambda will be executed on that invocation. Okay, so what happens under the hood is in AWS, it creates an infrastructure for you. Okay, so what do you mean by infrastructure? It creates a container with the same runtime that you mentioned while you write the code Lambda function. And then the moment the invocation gets over, let's say you created a Lambda function which should get triggered when there is a file upload in an S3 bucket. So it will get triggered once the operation is done. Let's say the operation was to convert a Word file into PDF. Once that operation gets over, that infrastructure, that container goes away. Okay, so you don't pay, you don't have to pay for idle time. That means whenever your user is accessing, only then your infrastructure is getting created. And once your user is not accessing, you don't have to pay anything, right? So that's the beauty of Lambda function. So we are going to see a quick demo about Lambda function, and also it will be a demo for machine learning as well, because we are going to use one machine learning functionality with Lambda function. So before that, I don't want to waste your time. Just let me come here and search for this. Okay, so you need to go to Cloud9. So this is the IDE that I was talking about, and this is the this is where you can create an environment. I have created one environment called dev machine, and if I just click on Open IDE, I'll get something like this, where you have an Explorer window in the left hand side. You have a console here. You can also write your code here, and it's all running in AWS. Okay, so you don't have to carry your laptop and all of that. So you can check in the Git from here itself, and you can access all the AWS resource from here. Okay, so this is about Cloud9 IDE, which I was talking about. All right, so now let's go back to EC2. Okay, and after that I'll show you what Lambda is. Okay, so this is the EC2 console. Okay, so now what you can do is you can create an instance. Instance is nothing but a virtual machine. So you can click on launch instance, and you can select any of the instance type. Let's say you want to do a machine learning. You can search for deep learning based instances. And what that means is it will create an instance with GPU, CPU, and not only that, it will have all the packages installed, like let's say PyTorch, then TensorFlow, and all of this, right? So these all packages will be installed, and you can just go and start writing your code. It's as simple as that. So I'm not going to create an EC2 instance because it's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is you have to select the right operating system and click select, and then you need to select the type of instance, like how much CPU and how much memory you want. See, this type of instance is T2 micro is free. It comes in free tier, so you can select that and click next. And there are a lot of configurations in terms of IP and all of this. Like, one thing I want to show you here is, if you come to the subnet, you will see that there are 6 subnets. What that means is, this particular region, Northern Virginia, has 6 AZs. Okay, so there are 6 AZs, and each AZ has a separate subnet. Right? So these are the things that we should know before we get into AWS, and that's why we just thought to share that in the first place in the presentation. And then you can click next. You can add some storage. This is the root file system. You can add any virtual drive to this, and then click next. You can add a tag. Security group is something that it acts like a virtual firewall, and you can add a rule where you can say that, okay, I can allow only HTTP access to this virtual machine, or I can allow only SSH access to this virtual machine, or whatever. Okay, and then you can preview that, and then you can launch it. So the moment you click on launch, it asks you about how you want to access it. So we prefer, we recommend that you use an key pair. So you can either create a key pair, or you can have an existing key pair. So I have an existing key pair, so I can acknowledge and launch instance. Right. So now it will take a couple of minutes, because now what it is doing is it is trying to create an instance in Northern Virginia region with the instance type which I have selected. Right. So this is in pending state. So let's let it continue. I just want to show you the flow. Once it is created, you can come to this action, and you can click on connect. Okay, it will get connected in the browser itself, but if you want to connect through your CLI, you can always do so. Okay, so that is about EC2, but I want to show you about Lambda. Okay, so what we are going to do now is, I will again first show you how you can create a Lambda function in the console, but then I will show you one Lambda function which I have already created, which uses machine learning. So one of the service for machine learning. But before we integrate Lambda with some other service, I want to show you how a Lambda works. Okay, so all you have to do is you have to click on create function, and there are a lot of blueprints available. In fact, you can create a Lambda function from your container image as well. This is newly added, but for this quick demo, you can give any. We'll select author from scratch, and we can give some Lambda function name. So let's say demo for NIT. Okay, and you can give the runtime. So this is the runtime, or this is the language that you should pick, on which you are using which you will be writing the code, right? So let's say you are going to deploy an application on Python. You can select the right Python version, let's say Python 3.8, and you can just create this function. That's all. Okay, so at this point, nothing is happening in the cloud. Okay, it's just creating a function, and it will do nothing on AWS. Okay, so the moment it gets created, right, you will see that there is an IDE kind of environment here, right, and you can write your code in this. So there is a boiler code written here, and you can just edit this and write your own code. And we are going to see what is event and what is context. So event is nothing but what will trigger this Lambda function. And at present, if you see, there is no trigger, right? So the way that you can add a trigger is by clicking on add trigger. And then here you have lots of other triggers, right? So the example that I gave was on S3. So let's say you want to trigger this code. So let's say that code is having a function written which converts a document file to a PDF, right? So, and you want that your code should get triggered only when someone uploads a document, right? So how you can do so? Let's say you pick a particular bucket, right? And you say that for whenever there is a new object create event happen. That means whenever there is a particular person who is uploading a object, only then this should get triggered. But your application is about Word to PDF. That means any document it cannot convert, right? So you can give some prefix as well, like let's say any file which ends with doc or docx, it should get, only then this Lambda function should get triggered. Okay, and then you can just acknowledge and you can add. Okay, so I'm just adding it just to show you that how you can add a trigger. So in the configuration, it says there is a trigger. Now, if you come back to the code and see here, then you see that there is a trigger added now. You can add multiple triggers, and also in this Lambda function, this is the main function that you have, right? And event is actually is that trigger. So that means, let's say whenever someone uploads a file in that particular bucket, this event will have all the information about that bucket. Okay, what is the bucket name, what is the object name, and all of that. And there's another parameter called context. It just contains the metadata. Okay, like at what time it got triggered and all of that. So most of the time you will be using this event parameter, and you will be using that in your code. Okay, so in this in our demo, what we are going to do is we are going to take some sample text. Okay, and we will try to use one of the machine learning service which can analyze that text, and it can tell the sentiment of the text. Okay, like you can think of it as a review that you give in Amazon.in when you buy something, or any traveling website where you just give some review, right? And now your objective in your application is to understand that whether the review was positive, negative, or mixed. Okay, so you can, this is a kind of an NLP based problem, natural language processing uh, problem. But if you're not from machine learning, but still you want to leverage machine learning in your application, so you can use a service called Comprehend, which I'm going to show you now. And then you can integrate it using Lambda function, so that whenever a new review come, okay, you can add, you can trigger, it can trigger the Lambda function, and Lambda function will trigger the Comprehend, which will send that its sentiment is positive or negative or mixed, and then you can give that back to customer or to some other application. Okay, so it might be it's not very clear to you. I should confess, but let me show you how it works, and then I guess things will fall in place. Okay, so now what we are going to do is I'm going to show you one Jupyter notebook. Okay, so this is running in my local laptop. I could have run it on the cloud itself, but I'm just running it in my local laptop. So there is a service called Comprehend. Okay, this is one of the machine learning service that we have, and if you want to show, if you want to see, I can just show you here in the console. If you come, if you scroll down, all these services are AI-based services. That means most of the service, not the SageMaker. Where is it? SageMaker. Except SageMaker, all the services are API-based services. That means you don't have to build or train any model. Okay, if you are from machine learning background, you don't have to train any model. You don't have to build any model. All you have to do is you have to use these services. So all these services are available through API. So if you are a web developer or a front-end developer, you can just make use of this API, and make your application machine learning enabled. Okay, and we are going to see that. So there are a lot of different services we can talk about, but Comprehend is one of the natural language processing service that we have, which can read your text, and it can do a lot of analysis on that. Okay, so we are going to see that. So so what we are doing here is I'm just importing few of the basic libraries. So Boto3 is the SDK in Python to access any resource in AWS. So I'm just let me just increase the font. It is very small. Okay, and the way that you can create an instance is using the client object, and you can just mention Comprehend, right? So in place of Comprehend, if you say S3, then this client becomes an S3 client, and then you can do whatever you could do for S3 about S3 through CLI or UI. Okay, so here we are going to use Comprehend. So we are just creating an instance of Comprehend, and then the idea is we want to check which language this is. So we know that this is English and this is Hindi, but we are going to see that whether Comprehend is able to detect or not. So So as I mentioned, that this API services, this AI services are API based. That means the moment you import and you create an instance uh, of that particular service, you can use just methods, right? So there are lots of methods available, but detect dominant language is one of the methods, right? So if I just use this, you will see that it has already detected that this is English language. So here it is. So this is the language code is English. Right? This is the first sentence, and this is the second sentence. So this is one of the use case, one of the method that you have in comprehend, but there is a better use case of comprehend rather than language, because this is not that exciting, right? So you can do a lot of things. Like there's one more function that it offers is detect entities. Okay, that means given a sentence or given a paragraph, it can detect the entities in that. Okay, so let's try this. So again, I'm creating an client for comprehend, and then this is my string. Let's say I study. I'm studying. I study. This is wrong. I'm studying I'm studying, let's say, machine learning with AWS, and I'm from India. And we are excited about the HackNIT, which is scheduled in March 2021. So there is no sync in this sentence, but I deliberately gave this NIT hack, AWS, India, then the some time, okay? Because we are trying to detect entities in this particular sentence. So let's now call this. So how we can call it? Again, comprehend dot the detect entities. Just like before, we have used detect dominant language. There is another method called detect entities. Okay. And before I run it, if you want to know what are the different methods that it has, you can always use dir, or you can check the documentation. So you have let me see if I can get it. So yeah, so if you see detect entities is one, detect key phrases, then this is a detect PII. PII is nothing but any confidential or personal information about you. This is very much used in medical domain, where let's say you have an X-ray, or you have a let's say you have what is that called, prescription, right? And you want to share that to someone else. We need to make sure that we blur out the text which contains your personal information, like your name, age, date of birth, right? So PII detects all of that, and you can make use of that information to blur that, right? So, and then you can send that process data to the next person, or the respective team. Okay, so just wanted to show you that there are a lot of different methods available. Okay, let's come back to our problem. So we are trying to detect the entities. Let's try to run it, and then let's try to print it. Okay, so PP is nothing but pretty print. I just imported that package. I hope you know that. If not, it's a pretty nice package. In place of print, you can use pprint. It have that indentation. Okay, so now if you see, it has detected that there is a text called AWS, which is an organization. Okay, and it also tells this probability or the confidence score, that is, it is 99% confident that AWS is an organization. And it also tells you what is the beginning offset and what is the ending offset, and what offset is just like what offset stands for. So at what position this AWS is starting, and at what position it is ending. Okay, so see, I have not written the code to train this model, right? All I'm using is just an API call. That's all, right? So you can always use this in your application if you want to make your application machine learning enabled, or you want to leverage machine learning for to do anything in your application. So similarly, it has detected India as a location, hack NIT as a title, then this March 2021 as date, right? So all these are the entities that it could figure out. All right. So this is the beauty of any AI-based services that we have in AWS. Similarly, we have a detect sentiment, and this is very interesting. You can again import Boto3 and use the client and create a comprehend object. And once that is done, you can give some sentence like this. Let's say you know what? You are such a pathetic presenter. I have no clue why, who requested you to come here. Okay, so this sounds like what type of sentiment, right? Let's try to see this. So we are just calling the detect sentiment and then see the response. Now, if you see that this is quite a negative sentiment, right? So that's why the score is 98%. It is saying that it is confident that this is a negative sentiment, right, in this particular sentence. So this is we use a similar thing when what you see in Amazon.com or Amazon.in, right? Exactly same thing happens in the back end, because you might have seen some product in the product page in Amazon.com, and you see there are, let's say, 10,000 people who have reviewed. So now you will see the average star as 3 or 4 or 3.5 or whatever, right? So this we detect using these APIs. I mean, it's not compliant, but we have an internal API, but its engine is exactly the same. So we get the the sentiment or the of all the feedbacks, and from that we curate the average one. Okay, so that's how it works internally. So now let's try to have another sentence and hit enter and see the response. And now I see neutral sentiment, right? Because this is a neutral sentence. Hey, I was just kidding. I have I have not seen any presenter like you since my birth. Okay, and then I am just using the same sentence, but at the end I'm just adding "you're awesome." Okay, so let's now see how that sentiment changes. And now you see that the sentiment is not neutral; it is almost 95% positive. Okay, so this is how a compliant works and detect sentiment works. It's pretty powerful. You may like to explore and use it in your application if you feel like. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to use Lambda, and we are going to use this compliant API. And the way that we want to use it is like this. We are going to write a Lambda function which will be triggered the moment we upload a text file in a particular bucket. Okay, and what this Lambda function will do is it will go and read that file, and it will call this comprehend detect sentiment method, and it will just print the sentiment. Okay, so when I say print it, we will be seeing it in logs, but imagine that you can give that send that information to some different application, right? So you can just, this is how you thread different services within AWS. It's just like a Lego block. Okay, so I just want to give you an intuition of how you can stitch to different services. So for this, let me go to this particular bucket. This is the bucket that I have created. So I'm just not closing this. I'm just switching to console, AWS console, and let me go to S3. Keep this file, doesn't matter, because every time you upload there is a new version of it, but we will upload some file, the same file probably. I guess I have that in um, just give me a moment. Let me just find out that file. Okay, this is the sample.txt file. So what I'll do is I'll just delete this file so that we don't have anything in the bucket, and then we will start. Okay, so now this bucket doesn't have anything, right? It's an empty bucket. Now we have to write a Lambda function for this, right? So let's go to Lambda. So I'm already in the Lambda console, and if I just click in on this 25, because I have lots of Lambda functions created before, and I'll just click on S3. Okay, S3 trigger. This is something that I've already created. I did not want to waste your time, but I've shown you how you can create a Lambda function through UI, right? So there are different tools from CLI also you can create, but UI is the best place when you are getting started, right? So here we have an S3 trigger. If you just click on this, the trigger is this AWS ML hack NIT demo. This is the same bucket where we have just seen where we have just deleted that file, and on the same bucket we are going to upload that file. Okay, so now let's go back to the code. and see what this code is doing. Okay, so this code is pretty simple. We are just importing Boto3, and we are importing JSON, and this is the Lambda function where the all the magic is happening. Okay, so we are creating an S3 client. Previously, we created an comprehend client, right? So here we are creating a S3 client because we are going to access the data from S3 bucket, right? So, and we know the bucket name is this, and the moment you this gets triggered, right? As we discussed, this event will contain all the information about that bucket and the object in that bucket and all of that, right? So that's what we are reading from here, because it gives you a dictionary, and you can always print that. How I know this, that it should be record under that. The first element is I did not know this, so what I did is I first place I just print this event, okay, how it looks like. And in the logs I've seen how the structure looks like, and then I just came to know that the file that I'm looking for, that details is under this particular path. Okay, so after that, you can always get the exact file name. This is what we are getting. So we are just taking this, and we are just finding out the file name, and we are just printing this file name, and we are going to see this in the log. And then what we do is we use st.get object. That means we are now downloading that object here on this Lambda function, right? We are just downloading this, and once that is done, we are just reading this file, right? And once you read this file, you send this. You now you need to find sentiment, right? So for that, you need to create an comprehend client object, just like before we have created a S3 client object, right? Where is it? S3 client object. So now we are going to use comprehend. So that's why we are creating a comprehend client object, and we are calling this detect sentiment. And we have seen this how we do this, right? And that's all. And then we are just printing it out. Okay, so we are doing two things. One is detect sentiment and detect entities. These are the two things that we are doing, and we should see that in the logs. Okay, and that's what this Lambda function is doing. Okay, so now to test this, what we can do is we can go to this S3 bucket, and we can upload this sample.txt file. Okay, I just dragged and dropped, and I can click on upload. So seems like it got uploaded. So what is happening at this point is, at this point, that Lambda function should get triggered, and that Lambda function should create a container, and it should have that runtime of Python. I think it was 3.7, and it should execute that code. Okay, and in that code, it is mentioned that which file to capture, because this will be captured. This information will be captured in this event, and then it should call comprehend, and it will detect the sentiment. Okay, so to see whether it got triggered or not, we can come to monitor, and we can see some graphs here in last 1 hour. Okay, and we can click on refresh, and let's see. We can actually see that in CloudWatch. The CloudWatch is a service for where all the logging happens. So this is the place where you can see what activity is going on in your services. Okay. So if you see that there is one stream which is just got created at 7:13, and this also says that I am overshooting the time, but it just got created. So let me just click on this, and if you see here, it says that a file name is sample.txt, and if I just come here and come to code, you see that I have taken this file name and I've printed this, right? File name is colon file name, and this is exactly what is printed here. Okay, file name colon sample.txt, and it also tells you the sentiment. The sentiment is positive, and if you want to see the details, you can expand and you can use this JSON, right? And I'm just checking in the log, but ideally you will be taking this information and do something else, right? So you can save this in a database or whatever it is. And similarly, there is an entity, detect entity API call we have made, right? So if you come here, we call detect sentiment as well as detect entities, and this is the output of detect entities. Okay. right? So this is how you use Lambda function with any other services, and it's very common for any developer to use S3 along with a Lambda function. Okay, so just keep this in mind, play around. Lambda function is very rampantly used in the developer community. I'm very sure that you will have lots of use case where you can just write your code, but you should come to Lambda only when your application is trigger oriented. If your application should run continuously, then Lambda function is not the right service for you. Okay, so whenever you think that your application should kick in when some invocation, only then you should make use of this. Okay, so that's all about Lambda function and some about machine learning. But I want to give you two links. So I'm almost done with today's session, but I want to give you this particular URL. Okay, so this has lots of labs, okay, which I have not covered today because it's not this workshop is of I guess 1 full day, and this is completely into machine learning. Okay, and there are some resources available. You can go over this PPT. If you click here, you will get the PPT downloaded, and then you can come to this lab, and you can go to every lab step by step. It will show you, how you can do machine learning on AWS. Okay, so this is something that I will share with the organizer, and or maybe I'll just copy it, and if I can paste it in the chat. Okay, so I just pasted this in the chat, and there is one more link which I want to share is this one. So let me first send you. Okay, so this is an application which one of our team members built. It is I guess it is built using Node, and this is how you can. This is just a demonstration of how you can use an AI-based service to build your front end, build your application without knowing much about machine learning, right? So let's say comprehend. You can try comprehend here, and you can put any text. Okay, so let's say thanks for joining, right? And the moment I click on analyze this text, it is actually calling those APIs which we have just seen in Python, right? So it is just saying that it's 99% positive or whatever. So you get the idea, right? So this is how you can build your application. In the back end, you can make use of this AI-based services. So similarly, we have different AI-based services. You can make use of recognition. Recognition is uh, for image processing. So let's say I don't have, okay, let me try this out. Let me see if it works. So let me try to detect the labels of this particular image. If it is able to detect a bottle, and see this, it has detected a person, human, a bottle, and so on, right? So you get the idea, right? So how you can make use of this services in your application, right? So so that's all about me.